Well, welcome to the show. You're listening to the Human Resource from the station ICRC-TV here in Cincinnati, Ohio. How many of you have terminated somebody because they just weren't a good fit? And I know I just made a bunch of people smile. I know you guys are doing it. I see and hear these stories. I had someone look at me just the other day and say, hey, they're under their 90-day introductory period. Can't I just cut them loose? This just isn't, it's just not working. And what we want to talk about today is a decision that was made in the Fourth Circuit that I just love this woman. Her name is Fiona Ong. She's an attorney up at Shawe Rosenthal. I believe she's in Maryland, if I remember correctly. But Fiona and I have corresponded a couple times, and she writes white papers that I gravitate because she has such a unique way of approaching topics. But one of her recent articles this past year in 2023 actually talked about that whole concept and that mindset of let's just terminate somebody because they're just not a good fit. And I want to talk to both the HR representatives as well as those of you who are in authoritative positions that have the ability to contribute to these decisions. Because I know a lot of you who are listening to the show may not have the final decision on whether this individual or an employee gets terminated, but you've got input. And this message and this show is for you as much as the HR people, because what we're seeing, and what Fiona is stressing in her white paper is that the courts are going to start putting more pressure on us to explain what we mean when we say they're just not a good fit. And I think it's a responsible question. I think it's a genuine question that we each need to be asking ourselves is, do we really know what that means? And are we being fair about this? And I want you to think about the individuals that, okay, you look at me and say, well, they're just not working out. I've told them a million times, we've documented, we've had verbal conversations. It's just, they're just not listening. They're just not getting it. But think how vague those comments are. What do you mean they're just not getting it? What do you mean you've had verbal conversations with them? So let's kind of walk through what really should you be doing if somebody's not a good fit. And the very first thing I try to stress is give me details. In my terms, when I'm working with my clients, I'm gonna basically ask them, all right, start with your story. Tell me what this individual is supposed to be doing. How did you convey that? What expectations have you given them? How are you reviewing and evaluating their performance against those expectations? And how are you communicating and conveying what you're finding, the results of with the employee? You see, it's more than just a gut feeling. And it's certainly going to be a whole lot more than a bunch of emotions, even within that 90-day introductory period. And by the way, let me preface that. You are using introductory period, right? Whether it's 30, 60, 90. None of you out there are still using the term probationary period, because we all know probationary period is not the proper terminology anymore. I'm doing this deliberately because I still find that in handbooks, the term probationary period. Introductory periods are a period where, they're trying the position, they're trying the company, they're trying to figure out whether they fit well. But as the employer, you're doing the same thing. You're looking at them and you're evaluating them. Did I hire the right person? Are they who they said they would be? Do they have the skill sets and competencies that they sold themselves to have when we went through the interviewing process? Introductory periods are fabulous. And if you're not using it, if you're not structuring your your first year, your orientation to the job with with the use of an introductory period, I strongly recommend that you do that. But even within the introductory period, do you truly have evidence? And are you communicating to a point where even the employee will know, you know what, this shoe just doesn't fit. I really don't enjoy this job. I don't know as much as I thought I did. I don't want to come back tomorrow and do this again. That's the epiphany that you want an employee to have. You don't want a surprise. And what the Fourth Circuit Court is doing in Fiona's article, and she lists two particular cases where companies were just not specific enough in substantiating what they meant by, you're just not a good fit. This just wasn't the right position for you. You're, as one individual would say, you're just on the wrong bus. But here's what happens. If we don't properly understand what we mean by that as the employers, what happens? We open up the door and that employee is left to interpret it any way they want. And when it goes sideways, remember, perception is 99% reality. That employee is going to look at it and say, well, I was the best candidate. I should not have been terminated. What do you mean I'm not a good fit? You're discriminating against me, or you're harassing me, or my boss is just retaliating against me. You don't like my religion. You don't like the color of my hair. Everything that you don't want to have happen. We have talked on the show a million times about communication truly being the key. And communication, whether that be through training, whether it be through evaluations, essential work functions, job descriptions, we could name a million different things within HR that help an individual succeed or help an individual understand when they're being successful or when they're not. And with this particular paper, it just came so clear to me that, yes, it's okay to say he's not a good fit, but be prepared. And if your supervisors or your team lead, your boots on the ground, are coming to you and saying, hey, this guy's got to go. He's just not a good fit. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to look back at that individual and say, help me understand what you're trying to say. And I don't want to hear that you want to terminate him. I don't want to hear that she's just not right for you. Tell me why. Start with the why, as Simon would say. Tell me your story. How did you get to this point? And I'll work with you. You know, that's our job as HR. We will work to make sure that we've got the right people in the right position. But it's also our job as the rock of the institution and the organization to make sure that they're doing it the right way and that there are no surprises, either the surprise of a wrongful termination case or a surprise that the individual decides they misinterpreted the termination and we now have a discrimination case. Ask for the why and document it. If you're going to write up a termination letter, if you're going to write up some kind of a separation form, Fiona's really good about stressing in here. Make it a legitimate reason for terminating an employee. Put in as many details, even within that 90-day introductory period. Substantiate it with the different situations where the individual just did not meet your expectations. They didn't meet the company standards. They didn't have the competencies. They weren't able to demonstrate the skill sets that they sold you on. And this isn't just for the 90-day introductory period, but I think all of you understand that it's even harder. And I'll just tell you, it's almost impossible to get away with terminating a veteran employee with the reason of you're just not a good fit. That is one shoe I will never tell anyone to wear. You have to be able to substantiate yourself. I mean, look, we want everyone to enjoy coming to work, right? And we want everyone to feel successful and appreciated, acknowledged, and that they have an impact on the company. But sometimes it just isn't, it's just not there. People think that they're going to love a job, and then all of a sudden they realize they don't love it at all. Or one of our team leads feel like this is the rising star of the department, and then all of a sudden they realize, I missed a couple things in that interview. This isn't a good fit. Well, when that happens, do it the right way. Trust me, you will be glad you did. And Fiona, keep writing those papers. You've got a lot of good stuff to share. And I'll just keep sharing it right here at the Human Resource.